Good evening and welcome to Special Assignment. My name is Ashraf Garda. In 2009, the Special Assignment team travelled to Thailand to investigate the plight of South Africans incarcerated there for drug trafficking. Tonight we bring you an exclusive on one of the drug mules who has been released after 18 years.
The contents of a life, packed neatly into a box. Paintbrushes, diaries, letters. To Shani Krebs, these are precious artifacts. For 18 years, his sister Joan and his mother Kathy have been packing boxes of supplies to be sent to him in a Bangkok prison. But today, they are unpacking his boxes because Shani Krebs is finally coming home. At the time of his arrest in Bangkok for heroin trafficking, South African Shani Krebs was 34 years old. Initially condemned to death, his sentence was commuted to 100, then 40 years. But on the 5th of December 2011, Thailand's monarch issued an amnesty to all Farangs or foreigners convicted for drug offences. For Shani, this meant an early release. It is 7 a.m. at OR Tambo International on the 27th of April. Shani is due to land at 7:30 a.m. The excitement is intensifying as Shani's family and friends converge on the airport to meet him. It has been 18 years since his 87-year-old mother last saw him, and for his emotionally exhausted sister Joan, who has relentlessly campaigned for his release, it is a dream come true.
My legs are like not even touching the ground. They're like, my knees are weak.
After 18 years, he's free on a Freedom Day.
Since 2008, a Facebook support page has attracted friends from all over the world who have been literally counting down the days till his return and making posters to celebrate his release.
And it's just been amazing. People have been designing their own things every day, making things pretty. People have become creative and they can't wait to go onto Facebook and see the different countdowns.
In 2009, Special Assignment went to Thailand to do a story on South Africans convicted of drug trafficking there. At the time, there were 11 of them. Shani Krebs had earned the tragic reputation of being the longest-serving Farang in Bang Kwang, one of the world's most notorious maximum security prison for rapists, murderers and drug traffickers. At the time, he was trying to maintain his optimism. He didn't divulge details of the hell that is Bang Kwang. Instead, he emphasized how his faith and artistic talent had kept hope alive. His paintings ranged from sensual nudes to portraits of legends and charcoal drawings.
Thank God for that, because I think that's really what has been his savior.
Emotionally, I think being able to translate whatever pain and translate it into a positive way into art. And I think, art is a very powerful form of being able to express yourself. So I think that has helped him a lot. And he's also grown so much as an artist.
But his incarceration has taken a terrible toll, not only on him, but on his family.
It's difficult to love someone and have someone love you, and you can't even touch each other.
Since his arrest, his sister Joan has tried to secure him a royal pardon or a transfer to a South African prison where he could be closer to his family. Her efforts were futile.
At the first few years, I was not a good mother to my children. I was not a good wife to my husband. I was totally preoccupied with trying to get my brother out of there. But as the years go by, you realize there's actually nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do.
My mom's found it very difficult to juggle family life, look after kids, fight every single day for Sean. There's not been a day that she hasn't woken up and just fought with everything that she has. After door slamming in her face, carried on fighting, and it's been very, very hard for her, and even with all that, she's been an amazing mother.
This while helplessly witnessing the despair of her own mother.
It's her only wish before she dies to see him a free man. It's her only wish.
Until the stroke of a monarch's pen determined that Shani Krebs would be released almost literally to the day of his arrest 18 years ago. When we return, in the global war on drugs, is the real enemy being targeted? Bangkok is a bustling cosmopolitan city of contrasts, where ancient faith and contemporary culture converge. It is home to 11 million inhabitants and a popular holiday destination. But to many tourists, the city provides an eat as much as you can buffet of sex and drugs. Prostitution and narcotics are illegal, but both are visible on every street corner, and both are for the taking, with one proviso: don't get caught, because in Thailand, even drug possession can carry the death penalty.
I've made some wrong choices, and they were definitely life-altering choices. It was about adventure, it was about taking risk, it was about danger, and also about drugs. You know, I was into drugs. You know, the more money I had, the more I could use. I mean, I was caught, and whatever happened was like part of my destiny, and I had to change my life. Losing your freedom, you know, must be one of the worst things.
Swedish author Bertil Lintner is an expert on the booming business of drug trafficking and the narcotics hierarchy. He paints a chilling picture of an unwinnable war against drugs and the role of the mules.
They usually come here on holiday. They run out of money. Life here is comfortable. They don't want to go back to the respective countries and work for 6 months and come back again. Somebody comes and makes them an offer that carry this stuff to the United States and give it $10,000. It's very easy to fall for that temptation.
Thailand has become an increasingly popular destination and transit point for the billion-dollar global drug trade. It is located at the center of Asia's Golden Triangle, a region producing much of the world's heroin and Asia's drug of choice, methamphetamine, also known as yaba. And this is despite the Thai government's harsh anti-drug laws. In 2003, former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra launched a ruthless crackdown against alleged drug traffickers.
Over 2,500 people were extrajudicially executed. There were tens of thousands of people forced into military boot camp treatment centers. There were a litany of human rights violations committed in the name of drug control. And that only led to increased HIV risk. That only led to more overcrowding in prisons. The war on drugs did not solve any of Thailand's drug problems.
In the trafficking chain of command, even recreational drug users form an essential link. The chain depends on supply and demand, and it stretches from the producers, usually peasant farmers, to the drug cartels and drug consumers. The dealers are the middlemen, and the worldwide distributors are the mules.
They would recruit mules, people who are willing to carry the heroin, enforcers who make sure that these people don't run off with the heroin, people who collect the heroin at the other end, and people who can then hire people, street pushers, who will sell the drugs at the other end. Then you have to have money collectors who will make sure that the money is collected, deposited in banks and laundered. If you're talking about black African couriers, most of them don't have the means to come here on a holiday. So they're very often, almost always exclusively recruited in their home countries. Either by being tricked into something or forced into it, or even voluntarily. Say, look, come to Thailand, have a nice holiday, and then do some work for me. They know perfectly well what they're getting themselves into.
So the mules are not recruited from the ranks of hardened criminals. They are small fry, the syndicate's decoys, its disposables, its sacrificial lambs.
If a syndicate wants to send 10 mules, 10 couriers from, let us say, from Bangkok to, let us say, New York. It will clip off the police and sacrifice 3, and the other 7 will get through. And they will then also pay off the police. The police get what they want, and they also get award money from the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration.
South Africa remains one of 3 countries with Ghana and Nepal that will not sign a prisoner transfer treaty, which would allow its citizens, after spending part of their sentence in the country in which they were convicted, to be repatriated to serve the remainder of their time at home. Without this agreement, they are doomed to remain incarcerated in a foreign country, isolated and often forced to endure horrific conditions far from their loved ones. In 18 years, Shani Krebs has had 3 contact visits with his family.
But it was always very traumatic, and I actually preferred them not to come, because after they left, for the next 2 months, I'd be completely unsettled. I'd find it difficult to focus on anything, and I'd feel so homesick. So it was better not to see them, you know.
We go there and we think that we have to inspire him and make him feel okay. And he came out, and as I've heard from so many people, inspired us and gave us hope.
As far as my own suffering went, I didn't mind, because, I mean, like I told you, I committed the crime. So I was willing just to do what had to be done. But knowing that my family was suffering so much, it killed me. But the other most difficult thing was that so many prisoners, anyway, with similar sentences, had come to prison long after me and had gone long home before me.
Government does not have prisoner transfer agreements with any country, and government does not intend at this point to enter into any prisoner transfer agreement that allows for the transfers of prisoners.
But there was not always government consensus on this, particularly during the presidencies of both Nelson Mandela and Thabo Mbeki.
It was right at the time when the transformation took place in South Africa. When the elections took place in 1994, the relations became excellent. They became very good, and I had all the cooperation that I wanted from the Thai government.
Roel Goris was the first post-apartheid ambassador to Thailand. He put together a prisoner transfer treaty in the year that 6 South Africans, including Shani Krebs, were arrested in Thailand for drugs.
Being convicted for 25, 35 years even in prison in a foreign country, it's traumatic. It was very, very hard on the families. And in the end, my reasoning was the families are not guilty. Why should they be suffering as a result? It did not receive a very good reception. Most people said, it's not a good idea, let them sit where they are, they were drug smugglers, they should be punished, we don't need them here, our prisons are full already.
But by 1998, 2 of the major players in the Thailand treaty debate were none other than former Ekurhuleni police chief Robert McBride and convicted former police commissioner and head of Interpol, Jackie Selebi. McBride headed the Directorate for Southeast Asia.
Robert McBride took it on, and for 4 years I would travel through to Pretoria. We would work on this treaty, and we got very far with it. It had been signed by Thailand. It came back here for ratification.
At the time, Selebi was Director General of Foreign Affairs.
And I saw the director from his desk saying that South Africa will not enter into treaties with any country. And literally it was torn up.
They're unfortunately going to have to get used to the fact that they'll have to continue serving their sentences in the country where the offences were committed and where they were punished.
Target the big money, not the guys who are carrying 20 grams of heroin strapped to the bodies at the airport. But these are expendable. We can just hire another one. And unless some people were caught every now and then, heroin will never catch such high prices. Because the higher the risk, the higher the price.
At the same time, one must warn people that if they get involved in a serious crime like this, they face consequences which really are too ghastly to comprehend. If you're 20 years old and you're going to spend 30 or 40 years in jail, it's effectively
When he returned, he did the crime, he served the time, and in hell he found hope. Shani Krebs had not spent a nanosecond in a democratic South Africa, having been arrested a day before the elections in 1994. For him, the 27th of April is his special Freedom Day as he returns to a country he barely recognizes.
It's like driving home from the airport, seeing the highway, seeing the route we took. The things have really changed, you know, just the traffic, the cars, the people. I mean, at the airport I was totally overwhelmed, seeing people walking around just doing normal things, and suddenly I'm part of all that again. So it's all new, you know, so it's overwhelming. I went to have a hot bath, you know, just to wash off all the filth from all the years of being in prison and never having any hot water. The conditions are tough, you know, but you know, you get used to it and you kind of adapt and it becomes the norm.
The norm was a prison built for 3,500 inmates, but containing 8,000, some awaiting death by lethal injection, others there for life in cells not much larger than a vendor's kiosk.
We basically demanded like United Nations space, which is about 1.5 meters per person. So my room, we were only about 9 foreigners, where the Thais in the same size room were 21 to 26 people.
Over the years, Shani petitioned for improvements not only to his own conditions, but for the other inmates as well.
I was responsible for them bringing clean water into the building. They did alleviate the overcrowding to a degree. We also managed to get a telephone in that people could use once a week for 5 minutes to call their families.
But he also spent 2 6-month stints in solitary.
I'd been there already 5 years, and you've got no privacy in prison. I mean, you can't even go to the toilet and do anything in private. You know, toilets are open. And for the first time in 5 years, I had some privacy. So that was kind of comforting, you know, to be away from everything, just to be on my own. So it was a very important time for me because it gave me the opportunity to reflect on what I'd been through and what direction I want my life to take. And my art evolved. For the first time in solitary, I started painting in colour. All my paintings before had been in black and white.
But the hell of being locked up in a Thai prison can be overpowering.
Quite a few suicides actually. Just recently where I was in Phnom Penh, there were about 4 suicides. And some of them were drug related, others were also actually in solitary confinement.
And in 2011, he came perilously close to losing his sanity.
I've been in solitary for maybe 3 months, and I don't know, I was extremely lonely, and you know, I almost crossed that bridge. You know, that line between sanity and insanity is quite a fine one. You know, they brought out a new law that they were going to move all the big guys to this punishment prison, but most of the big guys were dealing drugs in the prison. I had nothing to do with any of that, but it was also for fighting. I'd had quite a few fights, and I was extracted from my cell by a SWAT team at 6 o'clock in the morning and moved to a punishment prison 300 kilometers outside Bangkok.
He was prevented from taking his paintbrushes.
I tried to pray, you know, get more into my prayers, and I had some books that I was reading, and I just thought of my family, and you know, always try to put positive thoughts into my head. So I managed to get through it.
During his incarceration, his art was his lifeline.
And my art was an escape from my reality, you know. I mean, even the times that I painted, I'd spend 4, 5, 6 hours in the morning, and sometimes I'd paint right through the night. You could say when you paint, you're like in the zone, you know. You're oblivious to your surroundings, and even when I'd stop painting, it would take me like a few hours to come down to earth, you know.
He also received great support from Elizabeth Kramer, a Swiss citizen based in Bangkok. She made regular postings on his Facebook page, and she sent his paintings back to South Africa, which his sister Joan then downloaded onto Facebook. They fell in love in 2008.
When I first visited, it was very strong. This visit was very strong. We connected very strongly. What you can see from him from the outside is not the reality of what is inside. He's extremely talented and gifted, but he's very humble.
The encouragement and the strength you get from that is, I mean, a lot of prisoners don't get visits at all. Just to get out of the building, to see a familiar, friendly face, to know that somebody cared about you.
When he was first imprisoned, he said he would never learn to speak Thai because that would mean accepting defeat. Did that change?
Yeah, it did change. Yeah, no, it changed. You know, I think you know, I kind of fell in love with the Thai culture. It's really special. Yeah, I've made some great friendships. You know, and especially with some of the Thai guys.
Shani wasn't the only Farang released through the Thailand King's amnesty. Also with him was Gladys Naidu, and she was on the same flight home as Shani, but she avoided the media. Vanessa Goosen and Dawn van Niekerk were also arrested in 1994. They were released separately last year. Several South African women remain in Bangkok's La Diao prison, yet the Department of International Relations and Cooperation has not responded to Special Assignment's request for further information. Officially, there are around 1,000 South African drug mules imprisoned overseas, but the number is probably higher, and in the last 2 years, the litany of South African women recruited as drug mules has grown, a very disturbing trend. Tessa Beetger, for example, incarcerated in Brazil for cocaine smuggling. Then there was Janice Linden, executed in China for smuggling tick. Nobanda Lolo Babalo, bust in Bangkok with cocaine camouflaged in her dreadlocks. And then Durban headmistress Annabella Momple, caught with cocaine at Heathrow Airport.
One would have thought that from all the publicity my case had got before that there would have been a bigger awareness, and still people are falling victim to being couriers for drug dealers. And my heart really goes out to the women. They've really suffered, you know. And I know there's severe overcrowding there. They're actually sleeping almost on top of each other, and they can't order fresh food like we could. They have to eat the prison food, and it's really rough.
And they too will probably have to endure decades locked up abroad.
But I think it's important that that my case is known. I would hate to see that the new South African girls who have been arrested, I would hate their families to go through what my family went through for 18 years.
Shani did the crime and the time. Now it's time for a second chance.
I hope to make a difference not only to my family but to many people. So I think there's a lot to be learned from my mistakes.
And life's toughest lessons are the most valuable.
I still feel like I'm in a dream, you know. So I think this whole period of adjusting is going to be difficult, and I'm not rushing it. One step at a time. It's a healing process for all of us, you know. These wounds are really deep.
So, do you think his punishment exceeded his crime? I really want to know your views on this, and you can do so by tweeting using the hashtag Special Assignment. You can also Facebook or email us. And just after 2 p.m. on Friday, I'll be taking your calls on this on my SAFM radio show. Well, that's it from me. Join us again next week when we point out the issues that matter.